Chosen one, God is asking something of you right now, and this request cannot wait, because there is someone in your life who needs you at this exact moment in ways you may not yet fully understand. There is a person being directed toward you right now, someone waiting for something that only you can offer, in the specific way that only you can offer it. Stay with these words, because what you are about to hear may be the moment you realize that helping someone is not just kindness, it is obedience, it is purpose, and it is the key to your own next season. Type Amen in the comments if you believe God has placed someone on your heart for a reason right now. You did not land on this video by accident, and what I am about to share is going to show you exactly why. During one of the hardest seasons of my own life, when I was the one who felt like I needed help, a person came to my mind persistently, someone I knew was struggling, and my first instinct was, I have nothing to offer right now. But something wouldn't let me go, so I reached out with the little I had, a word, a presence, a moment of time, and what happened next surprised me completely. Their situation began to shift, and so did mine. Drop a like right now. This simple action helps carry this message to another chosen one who needs to hear it today. Esther did not arrive at the position of queen by accident, by charm, or by a fortunate sequence of random events that happened to work in her favor. She was strategically positioned, placed with surgical precision into a specific role in a specific palace at a specific moment in history, for a purpose that was larger than her personal comfort and more significant than her personal ambition. And when the moment arrived that revealed why she had been placed there, it came not as an obvious opportunity, but as a dangerous call to action that required her to risk everything she had gained by being where she was. Mordecai's words to her are some of the most piercing in all of Scripture, and they are as relevant to the chosen one reading this today as they were to Esther in that moment. Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? That question is not rhetorical. It is a direct challenge to the assumption that your position in someone's life is coincidental, that your awareness of their situation is random, that the persistent presence of their name or face in your mind is simply a psychological quirk rather than a divine assignment. You did not end up knowing what you know about this person by accident. You did not end up in proximity to their need by chance. You were placed there by your history, by your experience, by the specific shape of your story, because what they need right now fits what you carry in a way that cannot be replicated by anyone else who could theoretically show up in their life. I have spent a significant amount of time reflecting on the moments in my life when I became aware of someone's need and the specific process by which that awareness arrived. And what I have noticed, consistently enough that I no longer treat it as coincidence, is that the awareness never comes neutrally. It always comes with a weight, a particular quality of inner knowing that is distinct from ordinary curiosity or casual concern. It comes with a persistence that survives the first dismissal and the second and the third. It comes with a specificity that feels targeted rather than general, not a vague sense that someone out there probably needs help, but a clear, named, particular person whose situation has landed in your awareness in a way that refuses to be filed under someone else's responsibility. I have learned to treat that weight, that persistence, that specificity as the signature of a divine assignment rather than the noise of an overactive conscience. Because every time I have responded to it, every time I have honored the awareness by taking the step it was pointing me toward, something happened that confirmed the assignment was real. And every time I have dismissed it, I have eventually understood that I passed on something I was uniquely positioned to provide at a moment when it was uniquely needed. Here is what the chosen one needs to understand about the concept of strategic positioning, because I think it is one of the most underappreciated dimensions of how God operates in the world. God does not randomly scatter people across the landscape of each other's lives and then hope that the right connections happen to form organically. He is a God of intention, of precision, of deliberate arrangement, and the relationships, the proximity, the awareness that He orchestrates in your life are not decorative, they are functional. Every person who has been placed in your sphere of awareness, every situation that has been allowed to reach your knowledge, every name that surfaces in your mind with unusual frequency is there because there is a specific thing that the intersection of your story and their need can produce that no other combination could replicate. The chosen one who grasps this stops experiencing the awareness of someone's need as an inconvenient interruption to their own agenda and starts experiencing it as a precise communication from the one who arranged the entire situation, a communication that says, "You are the right person, this is the right moment, and what you are being asked to do matters more than you currently understand." So sit with this question honestly, the way Mordecai asked Esther to sit with it, not as a guilt trip, not as a burden, but as a genuine inquiry into the purpose that is embedded in your current position. For what moment such as this have you arrived where you have arrived? What has your specific history, your specific story, your specific location in this person's life equipped you to offer that nobody else in their world is currently offering? Because the answer to that question is not theoretical. It is practical, it is immediate, and it is the beginning of a response to a divine assignment that has been waiting for your obedience. The chosen one who answers that question honestly, who stops deflecting with, "I'm not the right person," or "someone better will come along," and takes the step that the answer points toward, will discover that they were more prepared for this moment than they realized, and that the impact of their obedience will reach further than they imagined when they took that first uncomfortable step towards someone who needed exactly what they had to give. Type 777 if you believe God has strategically placed you in someone's life for a reason right now. There is a voice that speaks with particular authority the moment God calls someone to step into another person's need, and its authority comes not from being loud or dramatic, but from being reasonable. It does not arrive as an obvious temptation to be selfish or indifferent. It arrives dressed in the language of wisdom, of practicality, of honest self-assessment. It says things like, "You don't have enough to offer right now. You are dealing with your own problems. This is not the right moment. Someone more qualified will come along. You would probably do more harm than good, given where you currently are." And every single one of those statements sounds on the surface like the responsible conclusion of a mature person who understands their own limitations and is being appropriately humble about what they have to give. But beneath the reasonable language, beneath the practical framing, beneath the apparent humility, it is fear. It is the specific fear of being insufficient, of showing up and having what you bring not be enough, of opening yourself to the vulnerability of genuine care for another person in a season when you yourself feel depleted and uncertain. And that fear, dressed as wisdom, has stolen more divine assignments from more chosen ones than almost any other force in the spiritual realm, precisely because it is so convincing, so well articulated, and so perfectly timed to arrive at the exact moment when the call to action is strongest and the resistance to answering it feels most justified. I have let that voice win more times than I am comfortable admitting, and I want to be specific about what that looked like in practice, because I think the specificity is more useful than a general acknowledgement of imperfection. I have been aware of someone's need and waited for a better moment that never arrived. I have told myself that I would reach out once my own situation stabilized, not acknowledging that my own situation stabilizing and my willingness to help someone else were actually connected in ways I didn't yet understand. I have assumed in the comfortable logic of self-exemption that surely someone better positioned, better resourced, better equipped would show up for this person, and I have later discovered that nobody did, or that by the time someone did, the moment had passed in a way that cost that person something real. And in each of those cases, what I have felt afterward is not the peace of having made the responsible choice, but the specific weight of having heard a call clearly and chosen silence over response. The chosen one who has felt that weight knows exactly what I am describing. It does not feel like wisdom in retrospect, it feels like a missed assignment. And the cumulative weight of missed assignments is one of the heaviest things a human being can carry through a life that was designed for purpose. Here is what is actually happening beneath the surface of every excuse that keeps a chosen one from responding to the call to help. And I want to name it clearly, because clarity about the real obstacle is the first step toward overcoming it. The belief that you need to have everything resolved in your own life before you can be used in someone else's is one of the most persistent and most damaging theological errors that exists in practical, everyday faith. It creates a standard for readiness that is never met, a threshold for qualification that is perpetually just out of reach, a condition for availability that ensures the chosen one is always one season away from being ready to do what God is asking them to do right now. God does not operate on that standard. Scripture is saturated with examples of people who were used at their most broken, most depleted, most apparently unqualified moments, not despite those conditions, but sometimes precisely because of them, because what those conditions produced in them was exactly what the person they were sent to help needed to encounter. The widow with almost nothing fed the prophet. The prisoner with no power interpreted the dream that saved the nation. The stutterer with no eloquence confronted the most powerful ruler in the world. The chosen one, who is waiting to be ready, is waiting for something that God never required as a prerequisite for obedience. God does not select the most prepared people to help. He prepares the people who choose to help, and the preparation happens in the act of helping rather than before it. This is one of the most counterintuitive and most liberating truths available to the chosen one, who has been holding back from a divine assignment because they feel they don't have enough to offer. The act of stepping towards someone in need, with whatever you currently have in your hands, initiates a process of equipping that would not have begun if you had waited until you felt ready. You discover what you are capable of in the doing, not in the preparing to do. You find resources you didn't know you had access to in the moment of obedient action, not in the planning sessions that precede it. You become the person who was needed, not by waiting until you feel like that person, but by choosing to act like that person before the feeling confirms the identity. The chosen one who takes that step, imperfect, uncertain, insufficiently resourced by their own assessment, will look back on it as one of the most significant acts of faith in their entire story, not because of what it produced in the other person's life, but because of what it produced in their own. One of the most common mistakes a chosen one makes when responding to the call to help is assuming they already know what form the help should take before they have actually listened long enough to find out. The assumption arrives quickly, shaped by what seems most obvious from the outside. If someone is struggling financially, they need money. If someone is confused, they need advice. If someone is hurting, they need solutions. And while those things are sometimes true, they are frequently not the deepest truth about what is actually needed in the moment. What looks like a financial problem is sometimes a crisis of identity that has expressed itself in financial terms. What looks like a need for advice is sometimes a need to be heard by someone who will not flinch at the full weight of what is being said. What looks like a request for solutions is sometimes a cry for presence, for someone to simply remain in the room when things are hard, without rushing to fix what they came to witness. The chosen one who arrives at someone's need with a predetermined solution already packaged and ready to deliver will sometimes miss the actual need entirely, offering the right help for the wrong problem and walking away feeling like they tried when the person they came for is still carrying the thing that actually needed to be addressed. I have tried to help people the way I thought they needed to be helped, and I have gotten it completely wrong. I have shown up with answers when what was needed was questions. I have brought resources when what was needed was time. I have offered strategy when what was needed was simply someone sitting across from another person and saying, "I see you. I am not going anywhere. And whatever this is, you do not have to carry it alone right now." And I have also, in moments when I had nothing impressive to offer, no resources, no solutions, no particular wisdom that felt adequate to the size of what someone was facing, simply shown up and been present, without agenda, without a prepared response, without anything except the willingness to be there. And in those moments, more often than I would have predicted, the person across from me would eventually say something like, "I don't know why, but just having you here makes this feel less impossible." That response taught me something I have never forgotten. The most powerful thing you can offer another human being is frequently not your expertise, your resources, or your solutions. It is your undivided, unhurried, genuinely caring presence, the experience of being fully seen and not abandoned by someone who chose to stay. What this person actually needs from you may be something so simple that you have been discounting it as insufficient without realizing that insufficiency is a judgment you are making from your perspective rather than theirs. A message sent at the right moment carries a weight that has nothing to do with its length or its eloquence. A phone call made when someone is in the middle of their hardest night communicates something that no amount of carefully crafted words could replicate. It communicates that you thought of them, that you chose them over your own comfort and convenience, that their situation registered with you as something worth interrupting your day for. A presence offered without solutions, without advice, without the pressure of needing the interaction to produce something measurable, can create a space of safety that allows a person to finally exhale in a season where everything else has been demanding that they hold their breath. The chosen one, who underestimates the power of these simple offerings, is measuring their value by the wrong standard, not by what they cost the giver, but by what they mean to the receiver. And to the receiver in the right moment, they can mean everything. So before you decide what you are going to offer, do something that seems simple but is actually one of the most demanding disciplines in genuine human care. Listen, not to respond, not to prepare your next point while the other person is still speaking, not with half of your attention while the other half is already working on the solution. Listen with the full quality of your presence, with the genuine curiosity of someone who does not yet know what this person actually needs and understands that finding out requires hearing them first. Ask questions that open rather than close, not questions that point toward your predetermined conclusion, but questions that give the other person permission to tell you what is actually true for them rather than what they think you want to hear. The chosen one who listens before they help will find that the help they end up offering is dramatically more effective than the help they would have delivered without listening, because it addresses what is actually present rather than what appeared to be present from the outside. And often, in the act of being genuinely heard by someone who is not in a hurry to fix them, the person begins to find their own way through, because what was blocking them was not the absence of a solution, but the weight of carrying the problem entirely alone. There is a spiritual law that operates with a consistency that defies human logic, and it is one of the most counterintuitive principles in the entire landscape of divine economy. When you become a channel of blessing for someone else, you yourself enter into an alignment with a flow that was not accessible to you before, not as a transaction, not as a contractual exchange where generosity is deposited and reward is automatically dispensed in return, but as a natural consequence of walking in the purpose for which you were designed, the way a river flows most freely when it is moving in the direction it was carved to move, and stagnates when something blocks that movement. The chosen one who was created for purpose experiences a specific kind of internal stagnation when they are living only for themselves, only focused on their own needs, only oriented toward their own advancement. Something in them that was designed to flow outward has no outlet, and the pressure of that blocked purpose expresses itself as restlessness, as a persistent sense that something is missing despite the presence of everything that should be producing satisfaction. And then they help someone. They step out of their own story long enough to enter someone else's. They offer what they have without calculating what they will get in return. And something shifts, not just in the person they helped, but in themselves. A clarity arrives, a peace settles, a sense of alignment with something larger than their personal circumstances produces a quality of inner stability that their own circumstances, however favorable or unfavorable, have never been able to generate on their own. Every time I responded to the call to help someone, and I want to be specific, that I am including the times when I responded from a place of my own depletion, when I had very little to give and gave it anyway, something in my own life began to move that had been still. I'm not describing this as a formula or a prosperity mechanism, because reducing it to that would be both inaccurate and dishonest. What I'm describing is something more subtle and more profound than a transactional reward system. It is the experience of a person who has stepped into alignment with their design and feels the difference that alignment makes in every dimension of their existence. There is a clarity that comes when you are living for something beyond yourself that simply does not come from living for yourself alone, regardless of how successful that self-focused living becomes by external measures. There is a peace that accompanies genuine obedience that is qualitatively different from the peace that accompanies favorable circumstances, because favorable circumstances can change, but the peace of obedience is anchored to something that does not shift with the weather of external events. And there is a strength that emerges in the act of helping that you did not have access to before the act began, as if the obedience itself unlocked a resource that was always present, but could only be accessed through the specific key of choosing someone else's need over your own comfort. Here is what nobody adequately prepares the chosen one for when they step into a divine assignment to help someone. The impact of your obedience extends further than you will ever be able to track. The person you help is changed by what you bring to them, but they, in turn, carry that change into every subsequent interaction they have with their family, their community, their own sphere of influence. The word you spoke into someone's life at their lowest moment becomes the word they speak into someone else's life at their lowest moment, often without even knowing that the chain began with you. The presence you offered when someone felt invisible becomes the standard of care they extend to others who are invisible in their own world. The courage your obedience demonstrated becomes the permission someone else needed to step into their own assignment, of helping someone they had been hesitating to reach. The chosen one who helps one person faithfully is not helping one person. They are initiating a ripple that moves through networks of lives they will never personally meet, producing effects they will never personally witness, carrying the fingerprint of their single act of obedience into corners of the world that their own 2 feet will never reach. So here is what I want the chosen one who is hesitating to hear clearly. In the most direct terms, I know how to offer it. You cannot afford, not spiritually, not in terms of your own purpose and wholeness and forward movement, to keep living as if the call to help someone is optional when God has made it specific. The alignment you are seeking in your own life, the breakthrough you have been praying for, the forward movement that has seemed elusive despite your effort and your faith, some portion of that may be waiting on the other side of an act of obedience that has nothing to do with your own advancement and everything to do with someone else's need. Not because God is withholding your blessing until you perform correctly, but because the version of you that is fully walking in purpose, that is living as the channel rather than the reservoir, that is giving as well as receiving, that is present in someone else's story as well as their own, is the version of you that is positioned to receive what is coming. The chosen one who helps is not delaying their own breakthrough. They are participating in the conditions that make their breakthrough not just possible but inevitable. There is a distinction that every chosen one who answers the call to help must learn, and learning it is not optional. It is the difference between sustainable obedience and the kind of exhausted, resentful, burned-out helping that eventually produces more harm than good for everyone involved. The distinction is between being a channel and being a sponge. A channel allows what needs to flow through it to flow, moves the water from one place to another without absorbing it, without being altered by it, without being depleted by the act of transmission. A sponge absorbs everything that comes into contact with it until it can hold no more, until the weight of what it has taken in exceeds its capacity to function, until squeezing it produces not a clean flow, but a saturated, exhausted release of everything it has been carrying far beyond the point of health. God does not call the chosen one to be a sponge. He calls them to be a channel, to allow His grace, His wisdom, His provision, His presence to move through them into another person's life without requiring the chosen one to generate those things from their own limited personal reserves. The channel does not give from itself. It gives from the source it is connected to. And the chosen one who understands this distinction will never approach a divine assignment to help someone as an act of self-depletion, because they understand that what they are offering does not originate in them. It moves through them from a supply that does not run dry. I learned the difference between being a channel and being a sponge the way most people learn the most important lessons, through the specific pain of getting it wrong first. There was a season in my life where I took on the emotional weight of everyone around me as if their problems were my personal responsibility to solve, their pain, my personal burden to carry, their progress, my personal project to manage. I lost sleep over situations that were not mine to resolve. I carried anxiety about outcomes that were not in my control. I poured energy into people who were not in a place to receive what I was offering, and I interpreted their inability to receive as a failure on my part that required more effort, more creativity, more of myself, until there was genuinely nothing left to give. And what I discovered at the bottom of that depletion was not noble sacrifice. It was a burned-out version of myself that was not actually helping anyone effectively because I had nothing real left to offer. The help I was providing from that place was not coming from strength, it was coming from compulsion, from guilt, from the fear of what it would mean about me if I stopped. And help that comes from those places does not carry the same quality as help that comes from genuine overflow, from a place of groundedness and clarity, and the kind of peace that is not disturbed by the outcome, because it was never dependent on the outcome to begin with. Setting a healthy boundary in the context of helping someone is not a betrayal of the call. It is the responsible stewardship of the capacity that God gave you to fulfill the call sustainably over the long term, rather than exhaustedly over a short one. The chosen one who burns out in the first act of their assignment of helping never makes it to the second and third acts, where the most significant impact was waiting to be made. Knowing what is yours to carry and what belongs to God is not a limitation on your generosity. It is the wisdom that allows your generosity to continue functioning rather than collapsing under the weight of what it was never designed to bear. Your responsibility is the step that is in your reach, the word, the action, the presence, the resource that is genuinely available to you without requiring you to compromise your own health, your own family, your own foundational commitments in the process. Everything beyond that step belongs to God, whose reach is unlimited and whose resources do not deplete, and releasing what belongs to Him is not abandonment of the person you are helping. It is the honest acknowledgement of who actually holds the outcome and who was only ever asked to take the next available step. So here is the practical framework I want to offer the chosen one who is answering this call, because I think clarity on this is what makes the difference between sustainable, joy-filled helping and the kind that produces resentment and exhaustion. Help with intention and with limits. Offer what you have genuinely available, your time, your presence, your words, your specific resources, without manufacturing what you don't have and without performing a capacity that exceeds your actual reserves. Be honest about what you can and cannot do, both with the person you are helping and with yourself, because honesty in this area is not unkindness. It is the foundation of a helping relationship that can actually last. Do what is in your reach with the full quality of your presence and your care, and then entrust the rest, the outcome, the timeline, the ultimate transformation, to the one who has infinite reach and has never once been limited by the constraints that limit you. The chosen one who helps from this place, from clarity, from genuine availability, from the groundedness of someone who knows what is theirs and what belongs to God, will find that their helping produces more than they expected and costs them less than they feared, because they are finally operating as the channel they were designed to be, rather than the reservoir they were never meant to become. God has infinite resources and people positioned in every corner of every life on earth. He is not working with a limited roster of available helpers from which he had to reluctantly select you, because everyone more qualified was already occupied. He chose you, specifically, deliberately, with full knowledge of your limitations, your history, your current season, and every reason you might give for why someone else would have been a better choice, because there is something in the unique intersection of your story, and this person's need that produces something no other combination could replicate. This is not flattery. This is not the kind of encouragement designed to make you feel special without substance behind it. It is a precise spiritual reality about how God operates in the world. He does not choose randomly, He does not choose arbitrarily, and He does not make mistakes in His assignments. The chosen one who has been placed in proximity to someone's need, who has been given awareness of their situation, who has felt the persistent internal nudge that refuses to be dismissed. That person was not selected by accident or by default. They were selected because what they carry, what they have lived through, what they have developed through their own seasons of difficulty and growth, is the specific thing that this specific person needs to encounter right now in order to move forward. I have questioned why God would use me in situations where I could clearly see people around me who seemed far more equipped, far more experienced, far more spiritually mature to handle what the situation required. And I have sat with that question honestly enough times to have arrived at an answer that has stopped being theoretical and started being something I actually live by. God does not search for the most qualified candidate to fill a divine assignment. He searches for the most available one. Availability is not a passive condition. It is an active choice that is made in the moment when the call arrives, when the awareness lands, when the name surfaces in the mind, and the decision has to be made about whether to honor it or dismiss it. The most talented, most resourced, most spiritually impressive person in someone's life is worth nothing to that person in their moment of need if they are not available, if they are too distracted, too self-focused, too convinced of their own importance to pause and respond to what God is pointing them toward. The chosen one who is available, who is paying attention, who is willing to be interrupted, who treats the awareness of someone's need as a communication from God rather than an inconvenient distraction, is worth infinitely more in that moment than the most qualified person who was not present enough to notice. Your history of pain is not irrelevant to this assignment. Your seasons of struggle, of waiting, of unanswered questions, of walking through things you would not have chosen and surviving them anyway. None of that is wasted background material in a life that has now moved on to something better. It is active, present, immediately relevant qualification for exactly what God is asking you to do right now. The person you are being sent to help is not primarily looking for someone who has all the answers. They are looking for someone who has been somewhere, someone who can say with the authority of personal experience, rather than theoretical knowledge, that what they are going through is survivable. that there is a path through it, that the darkness does not last forever, that the version of themselves that exists on the other side of this season is worth the cost of getting there. The chosen one who has walked through difficulty and emerged with their faith intact carries a testimony that is one of the most powerful tools available in the divine toolkit, and the specific person they are being sent to right now needs to encounter that testimony in the embodied, present, personal form that only a human being who actually lived it can provide. So stop disqualifying yourself with the argument that someone better should be doing this, because that argument, however humble it sounds, is actually a subtle form of disobedience dressed in the language of self-awareness. God is not confused about your limitations. He factored them in before he gave you the assignment. He is not expecting you to show up as someone you are not, to produce something you don't have, or to be sufficient in your own strength for what this person needs. He is expecting you to show up as exactly who you are, with your specific history, your specific perspective, your specific presence, and to trust that what he placed in you is precisely what he intends to use. The chosen one who accepts that truth stops waiting to become more before they give what they already have, and starts discovering that what they already have is exactly what was needed, delivered by exactly the right person at exactly the right moment, for a reason that will become clearer in hindsight than it could ever be in advance. Not tomorrow, not when your situation is more stable, not when you feel more ready, more resourced, more certain about what to say or how to say it. Now. The call you are feeling has a timing, and that timing is not a suggestion. It is a specific window that exists right now, in this moment, for a reason that you may not fully understand until you look back on it from the other side of your obedience. Every hour that passes without a response is an hour that someone continues waiting for what only you can deliver, carrying something alone that you were specifically positioned to help them carry. The greatest regret I have never carried in my life was from things I did. It was from things I felt called to do and didn't, from people I should have contacted and didn't, from words I should have spoken and kept to myself instead. The weight of that kind of silence is heavier than any discomfort that obedience would have cost. You already know who this person is. The name is already in your mind. The situation is already on your heart. What you do with that knowledge in the next 24 hours is what defines whether you will be remembered as someone who was there or someone who almost was. Chosen one. God placed someone on your heart for a reason, and that reason is not small. Every experience you have been through, every season of waiting, every moment of difficulty was forming the exact version of you that this person needs to encounter right now. Close your eyes and say it out loud. God, I hear you. I will not ignore this call. Use me. I am available. Amen. If this reached you today, it wasn't by accident. Drop a like. It helps this word find another chosen one who needs to answer the call to help someone right now. Subscribe and turn on the bell. What's coming next is for those ready to walk fully in their purpose and become the answer someone else has been waiting for. One word. Tell me what you felt. I read every single one.